everybody, I'm with MPL member Lucas Esper Berthoud, and you're playing a deck we call Izzet Phoenix Revival. So it's not exactly the Izzet Phoenix we've all come to know and potentially love, but we're not going to give away the secret just yet. So let's look at the first couple of cards we have pulled up here, which is basically the engine of the deck here. Arclight Phoenix, the payoff card, Faithless Looting, the enabler. Talk a little bit about why this is so powerful and modern.
Yeah, so I think at this point everybody's familiar with how this interaction works. Basically, you play a deck with a lot of different cantrips, that's cards that find other cards, and eventually you're going to see a couple of Phoenixes. And once you cast Faithless Looting, you can very easily put that in your graveyard. And since everything in your deck is so cheap, it's very easy to cast 3 spells in a turn. And you usually have, by turn 2 or by turn 3, a Phoenix or 3 coming back in the game and putting pressure on your opponent.
Yeah, this deck is capable of really explosive starts right out of the gate. Well, let's move on to what makes this version of the deck a little more special. Here we go, Pyromancer Ascension, Noxious Revival, which is where we get the revival in the name, and Manamorphose, which has the potential to make you an infinite combo.
Right, so it's actually very simple and straightforward. The way the combo works is you have an active Pyromancer Ascension, and then you need 2 Noxious Revival and 2 Manamorphoses. And it sounds like a lot, but you actually only need the Noxious Revival in your hand. The rest can be in your graveyard, and since the games tend to go a little bit long, and you have cards like Thoughtscour to put cards in your graveyard, you eventually do assemble it. So what the combo does is you cast Noxious Revival, you have a copy of that with Pyromancer Ascension, and you're going to put it on the top of your deck, Manamorphose, and a second Noxious Revival. Then you're going to cast the Manamorphose that you had in your hand, and you're going to draw those 2 cards. Then you're going to do that again, and again, and again. And if you do the math, you figure out that you're generating 1 mana of any color every time you do the loop. So what basically this means is you have infinite mana. Once you have infinite mana, you can start replacing one of the Manamorphoses in the loop with a Serum Visions from your graveyard. And once you do that, you actually have infinite mana and infinite scry. Once you have infinite scry, you can put a Thoughtscour on top of your deck, then you replace the Thoughtscour with the Manamorphose on the loop, and then you can mirror opponent and win the game. Wow. As I said, very straightforward, very easy. And what actually makes this a potent combo, Rich got it.
Super easy, Rich. It's fine. It's fine.
But what makes it special is that, look, Pyromancer Ascension, it's a good card. If you have it active, it's a good card. You're not playing it just for the combo. Manamorphose is the same thing, has many applications in the deck. Noxious Revival is the worst of all of that, but you can still use it to counter a Surgical Extraction from an opponent. Maybe you need desperately to draw a card again, and you put it on top of your deck. There are things you can do. You can use it against Snapcaster Mage. So cards that are useful on their own, and you happen to have an infinite combo.
Do you think that putting this combo into the deck makes it that much better? I assume you do because you're playing it here instead of leaving it out.
I do. So Phoenix is an amazing deck, but it's been out for almost a year now, and people have learned to play against it. Yeah. They devise plans where they can use Surgical Extraction in your Phoenix, and they play a bunch of removal when your thing's in the ice. So I imagine people would be prepared for that, so I want to add a third angle of deck to deck, which is what the combo does.
Yeah, and this deck survives on being so versatile, right? There are lots of angles that people have to worry about, and it's hard to sideboard against. Yeah, and we can kind of talk about that with our next thing that we're going to look at, which is Thing in the Ice and Lightning Bolt here. And these, of course, help you out with versus creature decks, that kind of thing. And again, Bolt, another way to win the game, win condition in this version of the deck too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your only few pieces of interaction in your deck. I consider this like a resilient aggro deck. You don't interact that much, you don't disrupt your opponent very much. Bolt it's crucial because it does a little bit of that. But sometimes you have a Pyromancer Ascension, you copy a bunch of bolts and you kill them that way, or you're attacking a Phoenix and you just bolt their face. Thing in the Ice, amazing card. It's what makes the deck good. It's your fastest clock and your best way to stabilize against decks like humans and Affinity that try to go wide on the board.
Let's take a look at some of your cantrip spells that you've got in this deck, because you do have a lot of 1-mana spells here, a full 4 of all of these cards. Now, does it take some time to understand when you need to cast what in this deck?
It does, because it's always contextual which one of those you're going to cast first. Usually it's best to start off with Serum Visions because you can use the Scry on your next turn, but sometimes you need to think right away, so you use Sleight of Hand or Opt. Sometimes you want to wait for your opponent to use his Serum Vision, so if you leave cards on top, you can use Thoughtscour targeting him. It's another trick you can do. But the cool thing about all of those cantrips and Manamorphose and Faithless Looting is that it's like you're playing a 3-card deck. You're playing Phoenix, Thing in the Ice, and Pyromancer Ascension, and you always see those cards. And post-board, and that's really really important, one of the main reasons why I chose the deck. You can have highly specialized cards like Blood Moon on your sideboard, and you're always going to find it.
Let's take a look at your lands for this deck pretty quickly. Here we go, the first set of lands, and let's move right on to the next set of lands, because the thing I want to talk about the most is the fact that there's only 17 of these in this deck.
Right, it's another major benefit of playing all those cantrips. You eventually find all the lands you need. You don't really have a use for the land above the third one. So I felt like 17 was the right number. You still fill it out. And sometimes you do keep one land hand and a bunch of cantrips, and you don't find the second one, or have to waste too much time finding it. It's a small downside, but overall I think it's a really positive thing to be able to play such a low land count.
Here's a look at the final deck here. Izzet Phoenix Revival. How have you been finding this deck performing at this tournament, particularly thinking about the London Mulligan and open deck lists?
It's all right. I think both of those things, they don't necessarily benefit my deck. They benefit other decks more. The London Mulligan is, I think, is a great thing for the game. But for us, our cards, they kind of do the same things as our cantrip, so we're not really abusing it. And as far as open deck lists go, I think my opponents knowing that I do have the combo makes my deck a little bit worse, but I thought that disadvantage was insignificant compared to how much I like the deck.
Well, it's a really cool deck, and I want to ask you, for people at home who might be thinking this is an awesome version of Izzet Phoenix, what tips do you have for them on playing the deck?
So try to do the combo yourself at your kitchen table and see if you can find the mechanics of that. Other than that, just try to be really aggressive with Thing in the Ice. Modern can be very fast format sometimes, so just take the more aggressive line to flip the Thing in the Ice early, and you're going to win more games than not.
Awesome. Lucas Esper Berthoud, thank you so much. More Magic coming up. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you.